Welcome to Social Work Sunday Tea. I am Shakia Houston. It is April 25th, 2021. It's a great day to be alive and well. Um, yeah, it's a great day. I'm not at home. I'm celebrating my daughter's birthday at another
Yay.
location. We have very special guests. I want to prolong the time. We're gonna get dive in. If you would like to introduce yourself, Miss Jasmine, whoever can go first, it's all good.
Hey everybody, my name is Jasmine and I am an advocate for children who are not able to advocate for themselves. You guys may learn a little more about what I do a little later in the podcast, but I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. You can go first. Go ahead.
Am I next? Am I next? Am I
You
next?
you
Okay, here I go. I'm talking into the camera. Hey, Shakia, thank you for having me. I'm Cindy Stanford. I'm based out in Orlando, Florida area. I am an advocate for both children and adults. I focus on this thing called adverse childhood experiences because I realize there are some adults with ACEs that they may not know about that is causing people to have to go to Jasmine. So I focus on both the adults, helping people understand like how to reparent the inner child so that these traumas and abuse that we're going to talk about later do not get passed down from generations. So that's my specialty, my
Absolutely.
superpower.
Yes, your superpower. And I really thank you guys for getting on the show, the podcast. It's an honor, it's a privilege. Thank you for saying yes. When you didn't have to, but you did. So I really appreciate it. I want to our today's topic is child abuse and trauma. Jasmine, what is your definition of child abuse slash trauma when you think of those words?
Mhm. Child abuse is it's so much that can go into child abuse, and it's a lot of different things that could contribute to child abuse. But I think like overall, it would just kind of be like both physical, well, not even just both, but like physical, mental, sexual, like any type of like maltreatment or mistreatment that occurs between a perpetrator and a child. So like it's like I said, it's a lot that can fall under
Yeah,
that umbrella of child abuse and like the trauma. I guess I would define it as like the outcome of that experience, like what the child has experienced or is currently experiencing because of the mistreatment that they received.
absolutely.
So for me, sorry, I was putting my teacher board up because I need to have my notes.
No, it's cool.
Put my teacher board up. So what I got to first put it out there that I am not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist.
Yeah.
I used to work with kids. I was a school principal for several years, and I got to witness a lot of what trauma looks like in action, trying to hold kids down and pull them out the class, and
Mm-hmm.
understood like what I didn't know then when I was a school principal is that these kids were coming to school with this thing called trauma. You know, they used to try to teach us and train us about it. But my definition, based on what I have now learned from doing the work of ACEs, is trauma and abuse obviously go hand in hand. And what I've understood from now studying adverse childhood experiences is things that kind of shake up the brain, things
Mm,
that kind of shake up the natural development of a child. So whether it's emotional abuse or physical abuse, basically it changes the way the body was designed to develop, which obviously is going to have a domino effect into some other things. So that's the way
yeah,
I understand it. And I co-sign on what Jasmine said too. I mean, the textbook definition in layman's terms, it's going to mess up your kid's brain. It's going to mess up your kid's body. And it's going to cause
yeah,
a whole bunch of domino effects if we don't start addressing it.
absolutely. I'm going to give a definition of child abuse is when a child or caregiver, whether through actions or failing to act, causes injury, death, emotional harm, or risk of serious harm to a child. Um, like include neglect, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. Um, During you guys' line of work, I know you said you were a principal, and in your Jasmine, your line of work, does what does it look like when you kind of identify what are some of the things that we can identify if a child is being abused? I know that we need to talk about this because it's National Child Abuse Prevention Month, and that's why I kind of wanted to get into this
Yeah.
this thing to talk about. So how can we identify if a child is being abused? Jasmine, if whoever wants to go first, it's an open discussion.
You want me to go? Or you want to go, Jasmine?
You can go. That's fine.
I'm gonna say again, if I knew then what I know now, I would have recognized trauma in my kids who all of a sudden they just start acting different. You know, like
Mhm.
what happened to this happy child at the beginning of the year, and all of a sudden your body language didn't change. You get sent to
Yeah,
the principal's office a lot more. Your grades are dropping, but I don't see no physical wounds.
right.
And what I ended up learning is that this kid was going through a lot of emotional abuse because the mama was going through a breakup with the boyfriend.
Mm.
And as a result, she was taking it out on the kid. So even though she wasn't physically abusing the
Yeah,
kid, I had a girl who was a straight A student for a long time. Just, I mean, she was my little principal's pet. And all of a
yeah,
sudden she went to getting sent to the office all the time, and us
yeah,
not knowing the right questions to ask. Like we see no signs of abuse. So for me, that's kind of what I was seeing, at least in my principal life, which kind of like directed me to say, man, these parents may be doing this and don't even realize how
right.
this is affecting the kids at school and in their personal life.
Yeah, absolutely. Jasmine, what do you think as far as like some of the signs? I know you're an advocate for, children.
Mhm.
So how can you identify um those signs?
Um, and I'm trying to group all of it because in my
Yeah,
line of work, the majority of the kids that I service are they're in for neglect, and of course, neglect falls under the umbrella of abuse. Um, we can see. I mean, of course, you have the physicals, like the different bruises that's unexplained. Like you'll see a child with a black eye, and they're like, "Oh, I fell off of a stair." I fall down the stairs all the time. Okay, like
okay.
promise you, it's never a week that I don't fall down the stairs, and I've never once came out with a black eye. So of course, that's like the biggest
Right.
signs. So like the injuries that don't really match the explanation. Of course, you have those. And another big thing that we see, they kind of like they begin to like withdraw away
Yeah.
from like things that they were really once interested in. You can have a kid that's like super into music and into school and into those things, and then randomly you will see them like back away or like back away from their friends and stuff. And so it's like, okay, you were once super into this, now all of a sudden you're not. Okay, let's stop. Let's talk about what's going on. Depression and anxiety is also really, really, really big in kids who are being abused. Like they kind of almost lose basically who they are as in person. So like they're always kind of like looking over their shoulder, always kind of like,
Yeah.
oh, like asking those questions like, oh, are you upset? Like what's gonna happen now? Like am I in trouble for this and stuff like that? So we see a lot of that as far as like just overall. Some of the signs of abuse.
Yeah, I can imagine. Some of the Illinois Department of Children and Family Services, I got some tips on how to identify. Someone said in the comments, they said isolation. That was a good
That's
one.
a
You
good one.
said that,
Hmm.
Jasmine, isolation,
Good one.
behavior issues, consistent visits to the emergency room. Yeah, a
Mm.
lot of that. Frequent frequently being absent from school, begging or stealing food from others, lack of medical or dental treatment, consistently dirty and has a body odor. That's the neglect warning signs of as far as being neglected. Abuse of alcohol or other drugs. Um, State no one is at home to provide the care. These are some of the warning signs. Sexual abuse. How do you come into, well, have you, I know you came into contact with someone that's been sexually abused as a child. What does that look like as well? So people can identify, because we have people in our own, in our own circle, in our own village that don't know. that people are being abused, like children are being abused sexually, physically, emotionally. So that's why I'm kind of like trying to identify, so people can make themselves aware of these type of abuses. Like what am I doing as far as, how can I help? How can I identify what's going on? So what's some of the because on here it says bizarre behavior. Um, like wet in the bed. Someone just
Yeah,
said
I saw that.
wet in the bed. That's
Mhm.
not age appropriate. Um, Engaging in risky sexual behaviors. Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
doing things that they shouldn't be doing. Dating older men and women.
Mhm.
Yeah, those are,
Yeah.
yeah, that's good, Tania. Those are some of
Hmm.
the signs that you've been sexually abused. I know I did a counseling session for this older lady, and she was sexually abused for a long time by her cousin. And the
Hmm.
majority of the time, there are people that you do know. Like, it's no strangers. These are all people that you know. And so yeah, she was sexually abused for a long time, and she was mad at her mother, and she couldn't really, this is where adverse child
Hmm.
experience come in. So she's mad at her mom for not protecting her. But it's like, and I asked her, I said, well, why didn't you, tell your mom? Like, I didn't want to get them in trouble.
Mhm.
Some of the answers. Some of the answers she would give me. I didn't want to get nobody in trouble. I didn't
Mhm.
know it was. I knew it was wrong, but then I didn't know because I am a child, so I really don't. At that time, back then they really didn't know. So, like some of the things. So what are some from both of you? Like, what are some of the warning signs sexually? They pretty much identified it majority of those when it comes to being sexually abused, and also just family members. It takes place within family. So how do you heal from that as far as getting that help that you need as far as with being sexually abused as a child, and then we'll go uh, to adulthood as well. Jasmine, what do you do? How do you help children that's been sexually abused?
One thing I will say is if you ever, hear a child say, oh, even if they can't fully explain if it's like, this person touched me and my no spots, or if this person touched me and they can't say it, but they can point to it. Like if you ever hear a child, if they ever are comfortable enough and vulnerable enough to express that to you, please take it as serious as you possibly can. Like it's not, I know, especially in certain cultures, I'm not gonna single certain cultures out, but in some cultures it's like, oh, you just have a wild imagination, or that didn't happen, you guys were just playing. No, it's never okay. Like
Yeah,
if a child is comfortable enough to come to you and say, hey, look, this is what's happening, this is what was done, it's continually happening. It has happened in the past,
yeah,
whatever have you. If it comes to that, please take it serious. Like, because
yeah,
it, especially, children, they have to really be comfortable enough to open up and to explain. I know kids can say and do some of the craziest stuff, but when it comes to things like this, especially, okay, I'm just have to explain. I
yeah.
do
Go
work for
ahead.
DCFS. I work for DCFS, so like I I see and hear a lot. And working with these kids, sometimes they're like, "Oh, I can't tell you," because of
Hmm.
course, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to get," I was told that if I say something, I'm gonna end up in trouble, or if I say something, I'm breaking up the family. And so
Yeah,
it definitely takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot
Hmm.
of like building that rapport, constantly reassuring them like, hey, I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you. You can talk to me and we can figure it out together. But once, kids get to that point where they're like, okay, I feel like I can say this and this is a
yeah,
safe space for me. If you ever hear that, please, what it doesn't matter who it is, what it is, where it is,
Yes.
take that serious,
yeah,
because that is a very serious matter. And we we tend to take children for a joke a lot of times because they're like, oh, they could just be hearing somebody else talking. They could be, in conversations that they shouldn't have no business being in, not staying in the child's place. But,
Yeah.
It does not hurt to, take that step and say, okay, let me sit down with you. Let's talk about it. Let's see what's going on. And I think that's one of the first steps to actually helping that child to heal.
Yeah.
Even if it was just, their imagination or they heard something,
Yeah.
it still gives that child that thought like, okay, if I ever, if it's something really wrong, I know that I can go to this person, that person, and they're gonna go to bat for me. They're gonna go to
Yeah.
war behind me. And that's one of the first things. And in my line of work, I would probably say about maybe no less than about 45% of my cases have something to do with some type of sexual abuse or some type of sexual assault. And it's common across the board. Well, I tried to say something, but nobody said anything, or they tried to tell me to be quiet, or it was, oh well, this is normal, this can happen, it's okay. And then they internalize it, and it becomes something like, oh well, because now I said something, now everybody looks at me as if I'm the one that's in the wrong, or if I'm
Yeah.
damaged, and then it trickles down. It's like a domino effect, because I'm damaged in this area. Now I'm not gonna excel in sports because now I feel like because this person touched me inappropriately, everybody else is gonna see me in that way. Or you
Yeah.
can have the adverse effect where, it happens and then it triggers something and they're constantly like, okay, well, let me dress like this. Let me be provocative. Let me try to build myself up to be something and look like something that I'm not, because I want that same attraction, because that's all that I'm worth and that's all that I'm good for.
Yeah.
And you can see both ends of the spectrum at all times. Um, However, that all kind of ties back into what I was saying. Like if you originally take those first steps and, just reassuring the child that it's not their fault and that they're not the ones that's in the wrong, you can, I mean, of course, there's going to be some trauma that's going to be there because that's a traumatic event. That's something that as a child, they should not be experiencing. But if you
Yeah.
can take that step and if you can advocate for them and you can show them that you're going to be there to support them, you can just about get them to open up and be open to maybe going to therapy or be open to family counseling or be open to, a bunch of different things.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Thanks,
So from
Jasmine.
go ahead. No, no. From an adverse childhood. Now you
Childhood
know.
experiences, yeah.
Yes. Can
So
you?
when I get to talk to adults, I'm a co-sign on everything that Jasmine said, because
Yeah.
I typically ask this question, like, so what is it that you needed as a child when this was
Mm,
happening to you? And mainly what I hear is I just needed somebody to believe me. I
mm,
needed somebody to believe me, and I needed somebody to protect me.
yeah.
And I think to one of the users' comments earlier, it's like engaging in risky sexual behaviors. ACEs Matter says it. ACEs Matter is my company. Adverse
Yeah.
childhood experiences is a thing that CDC and another organization came up with from the study. But in terms of the ACEs, like one of the things that's going to happen, as Jasmine put, is they're going to probably engage in more risky sexual behaviors because my identity has been
Yeah.
stolen. So
Yeah.
now I'm going to morph into this new identity, whether it be, presenting myself as somebody that's available, or whether it's just not taking care of myself. I've had somebody tell me personally that when they started getting sexually abused by their cousin, she stopped bathing because she wanted to not be, she wanted to be unattractive, or
Yeah.
maybe if I smell a certain kind of way, it'll keep this person off of me. So I think like the two things for like the adults that I've had a chance to like talk with as I'm doing the ACEs Matter, they wanted to be heard and they needed an adult that believed them, and a parent that would protect them. But
Yeah.
one of the things that we also know about with ACEs is that if it's likely that it could be passed down generationally. So in certain situations, like it happened to the mama too,
Yeah.
and nobody believed the mama. So now it's
Yeah.
happening to the daughter. So kind of sweeping it under the rug. And one of the things that we're trying to do with ACEs Matter is, well, a couple of things. We have this PIE approach, PIE.
Yeah.
I would say at an early age is prevention, intervention, and education. as age appropriate as we can, start having these conversations with our kids about it.
Yeah.
Because when predators attack, they get them at an early age where I only been alive 5 years. Is this what it's supposed to be like? So
Yeah.
I'm supposed to. So this is what daddy's supposed to, cousin's supposed to, or uncle's supposed. Okay, maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. I'm confused. All I know is that I can't even imagine it. Like, so the prevention and intervention part and education part is working with our parents to teach them how to have those conversations with their kids early on. And like you talked about early, like, if somebody's touching down here in your private parts, that is not okay. Come to me. But these kids need a safe place to have somebody to come and talk to that they're going to listen to. And obviously, like we talked about, a lot of times it's a high percentage of it. I want to say maybe upwards in the 90%. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. Where it's happening from somebody that they know personally, like y'all said earlier. So again, whether it's a cultural thing where we don't want to get, XYZ in trouble, so we'll just sweep it under the rug, you are still in that kid's identity. So confusing to a child. So again, I would sum it up by saying the earlier we can start educating our babies, the minute they can form sentences, letting them know, like, your body is a temple. Should nobody be down here? Not mama, not daddy, not uncle, not cousin, not brother. You tell somebody. Teacher, coach, whoever. You need to tell somebody, and having that safe place where people can actually, where kids know that they can go talk to somebody and be heard. And like, getting, I think, at least in my culture or in my community, growing up, just not making it such a taboo conversation, thinking, oh, I don't want to put nothing in their head, because then they might actually go do it. So that would be my take.
Yeah, definitely. I think back then we didn't talk about sex. We
didn't either.
Didn't talk about it. Didn't want to know. My mom didn't want to talk about that. No, like, I think, and with her mother, I don't think they talked about it. I think that now in this generation, we don't have no choice but to talk about it, even if it's uncomfortable for us. I think that definitely that we gotta have that honest, candid conversation. I got someone that's like, I think at the time I needed to be included. If I told them, I couldn't be around my cousins whom I was already restricted to being around anyway. I didn't say anything until just 2 years ago. It happened at 7.
Yep. And so now what I end up finding out when I'm talking to my adults is now all of a sudden, here it is, no lie. Why you just now bringing that up? Why? So they immediately, what they call, gaslight you. So, well, why you didn't say nothing back then? You know what? Because I had a developing body, and my brain could not process, internalize what was happening to me. Or when I said something, you told me I was just being fast and I needed to stop wearing them little shorts around the house, or I needed to stop dressing a certain way, right? So what they say, victimize the victim, right? And that is so confusing to kids, which leads to the depression, the all kind of diseases is what ACEs will tell you, that you're more likely to suffer from depression. 5 or more ACEs, you're more likely to call into work a lot because you can't really handle the stress. You're more likely to be at risk of developing diabetes, cancer. I mean, the laundry list of things. It is a $3 trillion globally thing that somebody's banking off of that they don't want us to talk about. And the last thing I'll say, Shakia, earlier you asked, like, what's the solution? If we follow CDC, I mean, everybody's kind of heard that name, especially since the coronavirus. CDC's number one recommendation is having healthy communities where people can talk about what's going on, so that we can start to denormalize, that ain't even a word, but start to make it like where it's not normal. Like, let's have these conversations.
Yeah,
that's the number one thing they listed.
Yeah, I think it need to be more conversations such as this. A lot of older, because I work in the geriatric population. Like I tell the story all the time where, I was counseling one of the women at the facility for long-term care, and she was molested by her uncle as a little, back in the day, 40s, 50s. Okay, then she went to her mother to tell. Her mother said, "No, it didn't happen. You lying. Be quiet."
Yep,
be quiet.
That is so common.
And
so common.
As a little girl, you come to your mom, you're like, she said that broke her heart. She didn't really know, and then she couldn't say anything because you didn't want to dispute your mom's word. You didn't want to say, "Oh, mama, no." And it was her mother's brother, and it was doing it for a long time. Yes. And so now She was an adult, had kids, and she was so promiscuous. She was going to men to men to men to men. She was trying to get that validation. She wanted that love. That's all she wanted from her mother. And then on top of that, because she was dark skinned and her, and back in the day, that dark skin, light skin type thing, that's another thing. That's another trauma.
Right.
That's another impact. And, and I think, that's what did it for her. That's what triggered. Okay, well, my mother don't love me. She didn't protect me. So I'm gonna do what I want to do. I'm gonna figure it out on my own. And so here it is where, it's like a snowball effect, on, it in relationships, when you get older, you kind of like, your relationships are shaky, are rocky. Some of the impacts of trauma, childhood trauma, attachment problems and disorders, poor understanding of social interaction, difficult forming relationships with peers, problems in romantic relationships.
Oh yeah, that's big.
And in a generational cycle of abuse and neglect. It's kind of like ongoing. Like, well, I was like this, so that's all I know. And Miss Lisa Butler told me, she said sometimes people can't give you what they don't have. So it's like, okay,
Yeah, that's true.
You can't.
That's
If
true.
they never had it, how can they give it to you?
Yep.
And who's to say, who's to say that they don't have the ability to? But like I said before, we have to unlearn and learn again of some of the behaviors that we encounter, some of the behaviors that we learned, growing up, not talking about these things. That was something that we just didn't do. Like I said before, something that we didn't do. Another, as far as like, the impact of abuse and trauma, the mental health, we said depression, we said anxiety, we said negative self-images, our self-esteem, the self-esteem is poor, PTSD, something traumatic, and suicidal because of what happened to them or what happened to you. You become suicidal if you're not, if you don't seek out the help and the guidance. I don't know if people are spiritual, if you have, do things, as far as like go to church, if you're spiritual and you have a relationship with God, yeah, I mean, that's what helps you along the way. But I always say, hey, therapy is the number one. I think God and therapy, Jesus and therapy, that go hand in hand. Because it's like, without it, it's like, I'm just out here trying to figure it out. But those are some of the things that I think a lot of people, need to know. Like, hey, this is what's going on. And if you do have, well, how do you feel about, parents that been through traumatic experiences telling their daughters or their sons about those things? Because some people can be embarrassed. They're embarrassed about their truth or what happened. So what do you think about that as far as the parents telling the children what happened? What do you guys think about that?
I personally, I commend anybody for being able to speak up, no matter if it's, right then and there, or if it's something, that you're like, okay, I've suppressed these feelings enough. It's time to release it. If you are able to face that demon and, you can tell somebody like, okay, I was such and such years old and my uncle touched me, or my grandfather or whoever. That is a form of advocacy. That is a form of, being able to bring awareness and bring light to a very real situation. This is not something, that's like super taboo where it's like, every one in like 100. Like, this is a very real thing where it could be like, I believe it's like 2 out of 10 or something like that. My numbers could be off, but it's something that's very real and it happens daily. It happens daily. This is an everyday type of thing. Um, and I personally, I personally feel like if we begin to bring light to it, we begin to not necessarily condemn people for being in this situation, but rather, you know, building them up and praising them and letting them know, like, okay, I appreciate that you are able to express this, and I appreciate the fact that you are open enough to, share this information.
Absolutely.
More power to you.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't know, it's look
that's really deep.
probably as far as with the connection. I don't know what's going on.
Can you hear me, Shakia?
I can hear you, yeah. Most definitely. Yeah.
Uh,
You can go ahead.
I was going to add to what you said earlier when you said Dr. But or Lisa Butler was saying they can't give what they don't have, right?
Yeah.
So parents are trying to parent from from an unhealed place.
Yeah.
So when we grew up way back in the day before internet and all that stuff type stuff existed, like I could see some of the roadblocks that were in front of us now. But I would say what Jasmine talked about, having that conversation, finding a place, a good time, age appropriate to have that conversation. The earlier, the better. And I would want people to hear that conversation is a form of prevention.
Yeah. Yeah.
That conversation in itself is a form of prevention. Sitting your baby down, or if you don't feel comfortable doing it because you haven't been able to heal from those ACEs, finding a trusted therapist or an adult. And you can now find therapists that look like you. We can't use that excuse, so ain't none that. Yes, it is.
Right.
Therapyforblackgirls.com, Psychology Today, filter it out. I only want you. So you can find people that look like you today. And therapy does not cost as much as it used to back in the day because it's accessible, and keep looking for it. And then the other thing that I try to tell people, and I think this kind of alludes to the loss of identity when it happens to people. I have a homegirl who just recently came out about her story. She's in her 40s and she's writing a book. She just finished writing a book, and it's called Jesus Girl Blues. Mm-hmm. And in this book, it's her and two of her relatives talking about the inter-abuse between just the family, like relatives that she hadn't even met from different sides of the earth. They come together, the family reunion, and they happen to have a very similar story. And that's how they bonded, the trauma bond, So, she put this book together, and in a part of the book, she says that, having her innocence, two things, having her innocence taken at such an early age confused her, as we talked about early. And when she tried to talk about it, she was rejected, right? Like, you just being fast, blah, 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 blah. But she said that she became very promiscuous in high school. Like, she was giving it away, just giving it away. She said, the reason I was giving it away was because I wanted to be in control this time. Think about that. She wanted to be in control this time. And of course, it led to dating people that were her elders, and, even a teacher that she ended up falling for. So it just really mentally messes us up. So again, I would say having this conversation with kids, whether you can't do it, get a book, buy a book, read a book with your kid, get a therapist, whatever it is, but not doing nothing about it, it's just going to allow it to continue to pass down generation. And then now you got two people that's hurt. The person that did it, and the person that it happened to, which means the person that did it, if they got away with it, I'm going to tell you that what I know for most of the people that I've talked to, that person kept doing it to other people.
Yeah. Yep. Tremendously. Yeah. That's definitely what happens. And it's unfortunate. Let me read some of the comments. Thank you so much. Some of the comments, I developed a trigger I didn't know I had. If I literally think I'm a problem to someone, I ghost, not from guilt, but from further issues. I'm afraid to make men upset, so I leave.
Yeah.
Thank you for your honesty, Charlene. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Charlene, again, thank you. Charlene is living with these ACEs. Like, so just thinking about, like, nobody listens to me. It's a real thing. You're going to have problems in your relationship. I mean, it's just so much. It's a domino effect.
Yeah. Definitely. She said also we were taught like things like what goes in our house goes on in this house stays in the house. I broke that cycle quick. We taught to be secretive about the wrong things and not fully explain to us just to scare us. Yeah, definitely.
And, I really wish people knew how detrimental that phrase is. Like, that is not a phrase that, should be coined in certain households. Like that is not that phrase can honestly
Yeah.
hold and harbor so much pain and so many different instances where, you know, I personally know somebody who you know, grew up on that phrase, yo, what happens in this house stays in this house.
Yeah.
And I probably would need about 15 different hands to tell you how many stories I've heard of her
Yeah.
being abused, being sexually assaulted, being, you know, phys- uh, not physically, I'm sorry, verbally abused, being, you know, called stupid, being burnt with cigarettes, having hot water thrown on her. Like it's that phrase in itself. Like every time I hear it, or if I hear somebody saying, "Oh, well, if it happens between," I don't even want to hear what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas because again, you know,
Yeah.
being in that area and being in that situation, that can add a lot. It's a lot that can go on. A lot of people try to use that phrase to hide it and to cover up, you know, what they're secretly doing. But
Yeah.
eventually, you know, my grandma always taught, I was done in the dark is gonna always come to light. It doesn't matter how you try to hide it, how long you try to hide it, how you try to twist it and contort it to make it fit you. What's
Yeah.
done is going to always come out, no matter what.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I believe that too. Like I think the secrets, that's what then you holding this secret in psychologically, you're like, man, and it's kind of like you're being tormented, by your thoughts, like, okay, if I did do it this way, how people gonna look at me, how people gonna view me. I think a lot of like, and because I work in a geriatric population, I think a lot of people, older people, their adverse childhood experiences, they don't talk about it. They up in age, and they don't want to talk about those things, um and try to suppress it. And that's why you have so many people that have alcohol abuse, drug abuse. They try to numb that. No, it never happened. And I'm subconsciously, I'm gonna go throw that in the back of my mind. Nope, I'm fine. I'm great. And have a smile every day, but depressed. You
You
know,
not just throw it in the back of their mind. I'm gonna put that skeleton bone in the closet with the other ones, and I
yep,
don't ever want this to come out. So you mean to tell me the only way I can heal is by
Yeah.
letting that skeleton come out that I've been hiding this long?
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
just keep it in my body.
yeah,
And I think the thing that was shocking to me to hear about people who actually experience sexual abuse, in terms of like the penetration part, the thing about it was I had a couple people say, I felt guilty because it started to feel good.
mm,
Well, that's what it's there for. It was there
yeah,
to feel good. At first, it was confusing, and now I kind of like took ownership of that because at some point it's been happening for 10 years. It
yep,
kind of became the norm, and so maybe now that I'm past that, point where it happened earlier on, and so then they're carrying this guilt of maybe I'm believing that the reason why I didn't tell was because I maybe inside of me I actually started liking it.
yeah,
How confusing
yeah,
must that be for a child
Hmm.
who
yeah,
has to say like, I'm at fault because I
yeah,
liked it
yeah,
later on?
yeah,
Or
yeah,
my mama kept dropping me off over there. She didn't pay attention to my behaviors changing. So,
yeah,
leaving our kids with anybody to babysit them or whatever the situation, like it gets bad. And like to know that kids have to go through carrying that shame, carrying those skeletons in their closet for so long, and then just figuring like maybe it was me.
yeah, yeah. That's
On
that's something.
Hmm.
That's something psychologically that's a lot of wear and tear on the brain, on the mind,
mm,
physically, and then it shows up physically. Eating disorders, sleeping disorders. All these disorders occur. Um, how do you how do you I guess for Jasmine, how do you handle the stress of working in DCFS? How do you handle that?
um, Man, when I tell you my self-care is basically non-existent, um, I'm honestly not the best person for self-care. I'm gonna tell you that now. I run, and I find myself using me constantly going as a way to like deter my mind from thinking about, okay, well, this is what's going on with this person, and this is what's going on with this person, and I know in full detail, doctor's reports, all of that, what's going on. But I can't stop, because if I stop, I'm going to think about it. So I kind of use my busyness as a way to like not think about it.
Yeah.
Um, but in school, because I am in school, also getting my master's. So this past week it's just so crazy that this is all happening at one time. This past week, we talked about this, and it's like, I have to be real with myself. I can't sit here and tell somebody like, okay, I know this is what happened, and I know you want to try to suppress these feelings and suppress that emotion and try to, dumb down that situation. But I need you to talk to me. I need you to, take some time to be yourself so that you can really feel what you're feeling, so you can tell me what's going on and I can better service you. And then I turn around and I'm like, okay, well, I know I'm feeling this, that, and the third. So I just, let me just go and type a paper, or let me go and figure out some songs for church, or let me go and wash some clothes and fold some clothes, or something
Yeah.
like that. I'm not the best person with self-care, but I did make a promise to myself that I will, start to recognize those feelings and emotions. And I'm going to, practice more into something that I have a passion for music. I'm a singer and I love to sing. And I kind of just let that die away a little bit. So what I promised myself that I would do for like a sort of self-care, get back into my music. So yeah, pick up the passion that I
Yeah.
got.
Absolutely. That's good. Thank you for being vulnerable in that moment. Because a lot of people can't admit to, you know, as far as with self-care, especially, I mean, that's a lot. Just dealing with DCFS. I'm like, I work with psych patients. I'm like, no, but these are children, and I think about my own baby, so it's like, I don't see, do you have any kids? I'm all in your business. Do you have children? Uh-oh.
Yes. I
Both of
have a
you.
6-year-old.
Yeah.
I have one child. I have a 6-year-old.
Okay. 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 Yeah, to be
I'm sorry,
vulnerable in
can you
that
guys hear
moment.
me?
Huh? Your phone breaking up. I don't know. It's going in and out. No, Jasmine's phone going in and out. Yeah. Um, someone
I
put
have
in.
a. That
Go
was
ahead.
me, girl. That was me. I ain't. So I have a kid too. She's 20. I know we spent time like talking about sexual abuse, which is a big one. Like that's an aha one. Like,
Yeah.
but earlier we were talking about like emotional abuse, and one of the things that chokes me up a little bit when I'm talking about. Is that me? Do you hear cracking or is that me?
Yeah. No, I hear cracking. I don't know.
Oh, tell Jasmine to mute her phone for a minute.
Yeah. Just mute your phone, Jasmine. Yeah,
I think
froze
that'll
up.
help.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
There you go. So what drove me to do the work of ACEs Matter was a couple things, but one of my biggest aha moments, Shakia, is that as a principal, somebody who thought they was educated, I was inflicting emotional abuse and emotional neglect on my child, and I didn't even know, because as we talked about in our community,
Yeah.
we just have a way of we do things, right?
Right.
And I realized that in order for us to like hear what CDC and everybody else is saying in terms of fixing this, it's going to require us as a community to have a mindset shift, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was parenting my daughter the way that I thought would work. I ain't read it nowhere. I was
Yeah.
just doing it, right? And so I
Yeah.
was using what they call tough love to try to get her to comply or address
Yeah.
her depression. She's telling me she's depressed. Girl, you ain't depressed. What you got to be depressed about?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got food, you living well. Like, what you got to be depressed about? And so not only was I emotionally abusing her by saying that, I was emotionally neglecting what she was trying to tell me. I had no idea. I wasn't forced to learn about childhood development. I had to take one course and that was it, And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
in order for us to like, as a society, or even, with the marginalized groups or minority groups that we care about, it's going to require a mindset shift. I thought that tough
Yeah.
love was giving her what she needed, was going to like encourage her. And what ended up happening is that she got even more depressed. She started having food addictions. And
Okay.
it just spiraled. Now she's healthier now, but it was just my absence of knowledge. I didn't read it in no book. I was just doing it as I saw it done to us
Yeah.
and in my community.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely. And I can attest to that, because some of the stuff that we, like I said, we got to unlearn and learn again, some of the things, some of the strategies, like with whoopings, I got a whooping for world peace. I got a lot of whoopings, like a lot of them. My mom, if you on there, I half the time I don't even know what I was doing. But I probably was messing up. I was, I got a lot of whoopings, but and I don't want to seem like, I didn't want to whoop my child as much. You know what I mean? Like now, don't get me wrong. They got me on a straight and narrow, and that's just for me. I'm going to speak for myself. I knew they weren't trying to kill me, but yet still they wanted me to, get in line. And I think now, I don't whoop Chelsea like that. I have a conversation with her, like, look, Chelsea, we doing it this way. And, sometimes you're going to have to spend a ride. Sometimes you're just going to have to. But I think, it's just a different approach now than before, and this is the generation of why. Well, why? Why I can't do this? Why I can't go sleep over at somebody's house? Why I can't go to such and such house? And I explained to her, look, I don't know them from Adam, or, I just don't feel comfortable, and I'm going to follow my gut feeling. So be mad. We're going to get over it. Like yesterday, she got upset or whatever. And I was like, Chelsea, are you pissed? You pissed off? And she was looking down. I guess she didn't want to answer. I was like, are you pissed? I want to let me know if she pissed off, she mad, she angry. I'd rather her tell me than to hold it in and then have resentment towards me. Remember that time when we was at the hotel and, you wouldn't even let me get a word in. And I'm just like, okay, I'd rather you just, let's talk about it now. So she said she was pissed because she was mad. And I was like, okay, you can be mad. I'm mad too. So what can we do about it? I like to have those candid conversations. I like to be honest with her and let her know, what's going on. Oh, okay. There we go. Yeah. And let her know, what's going on when it comes to, certain things. I'd just rather be just open and honest. Someone in the comment, they said amongst confirmed cases, 61% of children experience neglect, 14% were physically abused, 10% was sexually abused, and 5% were emotionally or psychologically abused. Who was that? I don't know who that is, but I can't see because they don't got the logo. But thank you for the facts. We appreciate that. We want to know where you got those facts from. But yeah, I just think that having candid conversations all the time, I think with children, makes the world a difference. Like Jasmine said, just having that conversation so the kids can be vulnerable and open to, to receive and be comfortable, like I think my daughter, she's a little comfortable, especially when I asked her, she was pissed. And she answered. And I think that's a good, healthy way, she's very intelligent. These kids smart, they know what they feel. And if I hurt her feelings, I'm like, okay, I apologize. And there's nothing wrong with apologizing to children.
Yeah.
I think too, to what you said, like what I try to constantly ask people, what would you have needed as a child? Because parenting ain't easy, right?
No.
Like,
No.
Unless you took a course or courses, because you ain't gonna just get it with one. The one thing the biggest aha moment for me was like working with our babies who are just relying on us for every single thing. Like, if you want to go over your friend's house, give me a break. Like, it is not easy. It's totally not easy, right? But I would say if it matters, doing exactly what you did, Shakia, ask them the questions because they scared of us. And they rightfully so, because if I say the wrong thing, you're going to go upside my head. I already know. Right. I remember from last time, right? So I think I'm being funny, but I'm just like, I have asked my daughter for forgiveness a million times. I'm like, my bad, baby. I ain't know. Like,
but it's not a book. Yeah.
It wasn't, but now we can't, like, I tell my people, like, y'all, we can't use that excuse no more, because
Right.
maybe it wasn't no handbook. Actually, it was written like 2,000 years ago. We might just need to dig deep and unpack some of what them verses mean, but if that one don't work for you, we got the internet. Like, we need to stop using ain't no handbook. I'm just tired.
Right.
I've been at work for 50 hours this week, and you
Yeah.
over here talking about, can you spend the night with somebody? So I think, like, one of the things that was a big aha moment was it was telling me, for us as parents, we have to have empathy. Like, we need to remember what it was like when we was 10, 11, 12, wanting things that our mom and them couldn't give to us, or, you know, maybe didn't have the time. And one of my colleagues, Dr. Tucker, who's a intervention specialist in Fort Worth, he said empathy has to be caught, not taught.
Yes.
Wow.
Empathy has to be caught, not taught. You want to sit down and do a worksheet, or you want to catch it in the middle of, like, what does my kid really need right now?
Yeah.
You know, and so it's not always easy, because we always on the go. Now we got social media and everything else that, you know, we didn't necessarily have a problem with growing up, but now it's like we competing for our kids' attention. So if you don't give it to me, mama, daddy, auntie, uncle, caregiver, I'm going to go get it from somewhere.
Yeah.
And it might not align with what you have in terms of being things that I should value. I'm going to get this validation, attention from somewhere. So what's it going to be?
Yeah. That's good. That's
Yeah.
good. That's real good. Yeah, that's definitely, yeah. We gotta keep our baby's attention. Like, hey, what's going on? What you doing?
Right,
You know, because you don't want the wrong attention. You know,
Right.
you don't want to get caught up in, you know, like I try to tell my daughter she's beautiful every day. Like, hey, you beautiful. She be like, you know, even with the acne, she was like, oh, just don't. I'm like, look.
Dark skin and all, because I grew up being dark, like you talked about earlier. We was not the thing. We were not in back in the day. The dark skin coming back though. We coming back. But look, I do. You know, so we have my daughter the same thing. Like they're, you know, just trying to tell them to get over it. That's like the worst thing you can say to a kid is get over it. That is like the worst thing you can say. Like, yeah,
definitely. But no, like, we gotta unlearn and learn again with our babies. We gotta protect the babies and listen, you know, and pay attention to them and be like, okay, observing. Like, Chelsea, you don't act like that. What's it like? You know, you know when it's been a shift in the attitude and the behavior of your children. So it's kind of like, what's going on? Let's have a conversation. And I think we need to have conversations. Well, we have too many. I think just having a conversation, and I think that, you know, because of our traumas, we have a lot of adults. Now we're talking about our adverse childhood experiences. A lot of adults walking around as children on the inside.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Me. I was one. Me.
Yeah. What was that like? You know, not to be prying in your
girl.
Life. What was that like? I know a lot of people, and some of the behaviors. I'm like, that's kind of like, what's wrong? And
I don't mind talking about it, because I need to clean all these skeletons out as I can, because they heavy. Yeah, them skeletons heavy. Let me let them out, because if I don't, somebody else gonna try to do it, and their story won't match mine. So let me do it first. Yeah. It was like not being taught. Hey, Tori, I see my girl Tori on there talking about city representing. Hey, Dr. Williams. I'm gonna tell you what it was like for me, from my own experience. You know, growing up in the hood, I ain't like not gonna sugarcoat it, and then trying to be a principal. I'm trying to be a principal around white people. You know, like, okay, I'm gonna put it out there, right? So they gave me a school with kids that look like me.
Yeah.
Not being taught what empathy, and I'm gonna go back to empathy, because I think for parents to understand at least how to stop the emotional neglect and emotional abuse, you have to understand what it means to empathize with your child, right? And so empathy again must be caught, not taught, because as a child, I'm watching how you treat other people when they come to you crying or when they come to you for problems. So if you're telling them to get over it, then when I become a principal and I have teachers or kids coming to me with their issues, you need to suck it up. Come on, you're going to be all right. You know, and so all of a sudden I'm supposed to go read a book and learn how to do empathy. Oh God, so for me, it was like, I didn't understand people's feelings. Like you need to toughen it up. We dealt with drive-bys and all kind of stuff. You over here talking about you can't get your grades in, girl. If you don't, so not having empathy is something just like I don't even know, and then it makes you not as likable.
Yeah.
And it makes you, like, in relationships, personal relationships. I had my first principal. I don't want to take too much airtime, but when I first became an assistant principal, I didn't get this, y'all. And this might sound crazy. I'm gonna put this out here. That was the best experience being a middle school principal. But my boss, during my evaluation at the end of the year, y'all know how they be going like 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars. I had straight 4s. I was like, I'm a 29-year-old principal. My evaluation was off the charts, except when it got to the personal relationship part. He tried to tell me the reason why I didn't get a. Ooh, I hope he's not watching because he's on my Facebook as a friend. But he tried to tell me.
It's okay.
It's okay. He knows who he is. I ain't gonna put it out there. But now it's just real feedback. I'm 29 years old, and the one place I didn't get a 4, which I really was expecting it. I'm okay, but it was, you know, Cindy, people want to get to know you. You seem very standoffish, and I was raised believing you keep work separate from home. You don't mix those two things, right?
Yeah.
But then you want to try to tell people what to do and you don't have a relationship with them. You're trying to tell the teacher how to work with kids, but you don't really have a relationship. And relationships start with empathy and sympathy, right?
Yeah.
And so I was void of that. And his feedback was like, they just want to see the human side of you. No, I came here to get paid to do this. And I don't want y'all knowing what I do after work or before work or on the weekend. And I realized that was my downfall as a school principal my first year. Like I had to learn how to get along and be around people that were unlike me.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, I really appreciate that. Yeah, because a lot of people, they don't. Yeah, we have to unlearn.
It's hard.
It's hard to do that. Yeah,
it's hard to.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I don't want to hold everybody long. I don't, like my grandma said, I don't want to talk you dry.
Don't overstay my welcome. Overstay my welcome.
Right, exactly. But no, like if you know any children, you know, that is experiencing any type of trauma, we want you to just reach out to the numbers, you know, that's in your city, your state, you know, things like that. Yeah, empathy has to be caught, not taught. Yes, absolutely. That was good. I like that. But you know, reach out if you identify any of these things that we talked about, you know, regarding children and trauma, child abuse, things like that. Reach out to your local government, you know, state, the hotline. We want to help as many children as we can, and also normalize mental health, you know, normalize talking about these type of issues and these type of things, you know, so we can make people aware. Pretty much so, make people aware. I want to thank you ladies for getting on. I really, really appreciate it. Like, seriously. Thank you again. Thank you for saying yes. How can we find Aces Matter? Jasmine, are you on Instagram, Facebook, or no? You just
No, I am. I know if you search my name, you're gonna find 2. You're gonna find one that says DCFS. Please do not add that because
I got you.
It's for. When it's DCFS, that's strictly what it is for. So if you try to add that, you're not gonna get anything. But if you just type my name in, Jasmine Wheaton, you'll see me and my little shadow, my little mini boo. You'll see all of that.
Cool. Aces Matter.
So mine's is Aces Matter is a brand new baby. It's been around less than a year. It'll be a year in May, but acesmatter.com. And then we do a lot of activity on social media. So we try to have conversations weekly with adults who are living with ACEs. So we do a Throwback Thursday every Thursday. So if y'all want to tune in, we do that at 8 p.m. Central Time. And again, we start the conversation and see what happens. Throwing Jello on the wall, see if it sticks.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Man, I really, really appreciate it. Everybody tune in next week for Social Work Sunday Tea. We'll be talking about Black female friendships.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one. You know, how they're formed, how we interact, you know, things like that. So make sure you tune in, and I love each and every one of you, and I'll see you on next week. All right. See you guys.